Everybody's asking, what is a digital twin and what is the metaverse and where is it going?
As you walk the site, the model loads around you. So we're able to bring in very large files and walk very large spaces.
The data that's behind that mesh, the different segmenting of that mesh as well.
It goes to computational and generative design. It goes to artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Do we need to go all the way to a controlled, very accurate BIM model to have the information to be able to then pull and use for the construction engineering grade?
What are the other organizations and industries that can benefit from all of this data, and how can we multi-purpose it?
To make more meaningful use of the data and the information that we're providing our clients.
As an opportunity to bridge data with emotion and presence.
Capture could be used for other purposes beyond that. So you get the as-built, right? Now we can use that in training. We can use that for safety.
Make it known that there's more to what's actually happening with this concept of a digital twin.
We're creating a comet trail of data when we want to.
There's just so many brilliant solutions for that data beyond its original capture.
It's the way to motivate people to do certain things and make them enjoy it.
This is a good use of what we could potentially do with this technology.
There's some really interesting opportunity there that you can't get from a computer screen.
Have a couple different ideas of what the building's going to be.
We can use it as a time capsule, for God's sakes.
Now we have the opportunity to go well beyond that.
We're also going to see the future of holograms.
Let's go tour these designs.
Permissions and privilege and status and NFTs.
Put on your VR headset, you are in the shopping space.
That you can put in your HoloLens, scan it, and it would show you exactly where that piece goes.
That's why we physically go to environments, because we need that experience as humans to get that feeling.
Some people think that the metaverse has to be a massive multiplayer game, in order to qualify.
We take existing BIM models, convert them into a small AR-ready format. You have all your trades models there and the different components that you can click on and off.
Get folks in there so that they can really understand, like, this is the real space.
There's, some really interesting things we can do to bridge all of this information together and bring it back into the real world.
You can invite someone into your space and it's going to be the mix of AR, hologram, real world, and immersive.
That's what I see the metaverse is bringing all of those components together and creating an environment where people can collaborate and participate.
I think we're going to see very small metaverses, we're going to see very large ones. At the end of the day, the real world isn't going to go away.
It's just the next logical thing because we can.
I'm excited about this conversation because I think this is one of those, so far in the conference, we've talked a lot about things that are happening today and challenges we've had over the last few years and working with current technologies. I think this is the panel that I like talking about the future. Like where do we see digital twins and the metaverse going? What are those things? How can we take all of these technologies and blend them together in a way that really transforms our organizations, the way we work? So I think it's going to be a fun conversation. And as always, we'll go ahead and start with introductions, and we'll start down here with Merritt.
Hi, I'm Merritt Thatcher. I'm CEO and co-founder of Argyle, and we are BIM to AR for the construction site.
Good morning, Trevor McMaster. I'm the Chief Client Officer with Virum. We're a visual digital twin, and we focus on data, jobs to be done. And at the end of the day, I'm pinch hitting for our CTO up here, so don't expect too much geeky stuff. And I'm a maintenance planner at heart.
My name is Kyle Daughtry. I've been with Exxon about 16 years, ExxonMobil. I'm the XR and digital twin product manager.
Nick Hughes with Amstead Rail, lead emerging technologies for a large manufacturing company.
Hi, I'm Anthony Butchbaker with Spartan Scanning Solutions. We are a reality capture service provider for heavy industry and manufacturing sectors.
Good morning, Michael Warren with AECOM, Associate Vice President and BIM Director for Digital Innovation and Transformation.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. And we had one that couldn't make it with us, but we're going to go ahead and kick off. Again, I like the reminder out there. We love questions from audience, things that apply to you. So please feel free to use that QR code on your agenda if you want to submit questions throughout the panel. But digital twin and metaverse. I want to start because there's so many people that are not exploring yet, that don't know what those mean, that don't know where we can go with them. And also, it makes me think back to the quote in one of my opening presentations is, we can create the future, right? The best way to predict the future is to create it. And so I think when we look at these terms, I think the community of professionals get to decide what they really mean, right? And where they go and how we use them. And these are still new and developing. So I'd love to take a minute and just get some feedback from those of you up here on what is, we'll start with digital twin. What is digital twin from your perspective I know we have differences up here from, software and from end users. So what is a digital twin to you?
Yeah, I'll take it first. All right. So I think, digital twin, the term's been around for a long time. There's a standard definition out there now through the DTC, the Digital Twin Consortium. Really bringing process and data together to allow people to be able to remotely access that information in a digital space. We started switching the conversation more from like, let's define a new digital twin or whatever that is, into what are the things that matter the most to our company around a digital twin. And that's, how does process come together with data, come together with visualization. And so I think really the metaverse and the term for metaverse is a new, great emerging one, right? Industrial metaverse is the term that's been pushed out there. I think there's a lot of merit in that term. I do think both of them are relative buzzwords. I think we probably would agree on that aspect of it. But the part that I think really excites me about where we go for the future past a digital twin is having this always on, always connected environment. So I've got a remote operator or a remote engineer in India that is seeing the exact same thing as the field op in the site. Let's just say it's Baytown for us, and they actually can collaborate in real time at all points in times. And I think that's probably one of the biggest powers, is trying to connect people from all across the world at any time, at all times. And so anytime, anywhere is one of the big slogans for us.
Sweet.
I'll pile on there, Kyle. I really like your focus on the data, the process, and the visualization. I mean, we live in a data tsunami world right now. And if I look at the conference and all the toys walking around capturing data, if you go on the campus, I've seen some people on Lime scooters texting. 90% of the world's data has been generated in the last 2 years. It's just going to exponentially grow.
Yep.
So I see that digital twin and that metaverse being digital ecosystems that bring people together and collaborate type of thing. And I want to say I did see one student on a Lime scooter texting, but I don't think it was a student. I think it was one of the people on the panel here. I'll defer.
Digital twins, there's in manufacturing space, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be in any form. There's always, for the past 2 or 3 years, almost every digital twin conference that you go, or a digital transformation conference you go to, what's the first slide that somebody shows when they talk about digial twin?
What is it?
Our definition of digital, you don't have to define it. No. Just tell us what you're doing in this. If we think about it as a noun, like it has to be this thing, this defined thing. I don't know that that's how I would define digital twin. Tier 1 automotive, food, and other large manufacturers have lots of 2D twins, and they're super high value. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be in 3D per se. I'm a fan of 3D. I think Michael Gulu would explode if he was in the audience right now.
Is he out there?
But on the metaverse side, I think they start to blend.
Head would explode.
That was really good.
Yeah, that was perfect.
Sound effects. Yeah. I think those two start to blend together. The metaverse and the digital twin they kind of work together. I liked your word for it. It's more of an ecosystem, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think it's more than what people treat it. What I found is a lot of clients and a lot of people in the industry from our side see it as just a 3D model. And that's a big misconception. We call it cadaver BIM, right? It's dead on arrival. We look at it more for the ecosystem, like you said, but it's going all the way through to asset management. It's literally IoT It's connection, it's SCADA systems, it's, you know, getting real-time information virtually and being able to utilize all of that data and that information for a meaningful purpose, right? So what is the desired outcome that you want? And, you know, for me, in my industry, the biggest area where we see that is with airports. They're small cities. And the way that they function, you know, it takes an incredible amount of data and operational maintenance to control what you have. And there's discussions now about, are we going to have metaverses for airports for people to navigate and live and find their ways around? But then there's security concerns and other things. But I think the term digital twin is still in its infancy. I just got back from IHEAP, and there's no agency around the country that can agree on what a digital twin really is. It's something that matters to them for how they use it. We liken it to a Mobius strip. So you start at the end, and as you move the pen across the piece of paper, it brings you back to the beginning. So, you know, I think, you know, the ecosystem, yeah, but are we ready? Are people ready to adopt the concept of a full ecosystem, a full digital ecosystem, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think there's a study out there. Have y'all seen that diagram that shows there's 255 different variants of a digital twin? Have y'all seen that? It's like a three-dimensional diagram.
It would have to be, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's exactly. It's perfectly right.
The digital twin.
It's the digital twin. I agree. I think we're at the beginning of it. I think everything comes back to data, and what we're trying to do now is just be able to build the foundations so you can grow. We did a lot of really cool stuff over the past 10 years or so. The biggest problem we found out that was you can't do any of it if at scale across the entire organization without having data at the foundation. I know that's like a buzzword too, data. I say it all the time in all the presentations, but it really is true. There's no way to be able to scale without having good data foundations. And for us, it's data foundations in those three areas. Come listen to our presentation. We'll talk a little bit more about it.
So Matt, I agree. Both those terms are going to be redefined and further definition into the future for sure.
Yeah. So what is metaverse?
I'll take it. It's the AR lady in the crowd. So we're talking about this with my team, and we think the problem here is with the word "the." There's no "the metaverse." There's no "the digital twin." There's no "the food." And as much as we want to get hung up on what do these things mean, like you say, I'm hungry, let's go eat. You all discuss, like, what do you want to eat that day? Is it veggies? Is it meaty? Is it Chinese food? And all of these things, it's like digital twins in the metaverse. These are just giant umbrella words that get at the very start of a conversation. So the metaverse, I don't think does exist or ever will exist. There's millions of little metaverses, and we all live in our own worlds. I think of it as layers of data on top of our reality. That's how I think of the metaverse. But I've heard somebody say that Taylor Swift has her own metaverse just of fans and who live in their own world, and I want to be in that one too.
You want to be in that one?
I do.
Yeah.
There's a YouTube video that somebody had sent me a couple years ago, and it was the line for it is hyperconnectivity and what the future will look like. And really what it is it's augmented daily life. It's you glance at a business, you can see reviews, all of it. It all just happens in front of you. You get on the subway to head somewhere, you're automatically debited, you're notified of it, right? It's hyper connectivity. It's where all of your data and all of your human functions are all kind of integrated together, right? It's almost like a modality of life.
Yeah. Yeah, we call it layer cake, the industrial metaverse layer cake. And that's been something we've been building over a bit of time. But the aspect I want to build on top of yours is context. So it's instant context.
Yeah.
So like digital twin allows us to get context at a point in time, over time. But I want instant context at every time. So if I'm in the field and I walk into a no-go zone, I have instant notification and I have instant information on me about what to do to get out of there, or I have directions out of there, right? I think all of it really for us, it comes down to instant context. How do I build contextualization right now?
I love
and
that.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that contextualization and that hyper, data availability. But to me, that metaverse should be focused on the job to be done, that persona type of thing. Is it, a passenger at an airport? Is it a maintenance planner trying to do a job, and making sure the metaverse is supporting them and getting that data they need to make cognitive decisions, whether it's asset management or catching a plane type of thing. That's really what I think the metaverse is all about, that job to be done.
So in short, it starts with people and it ends with people, right? And that's the conundrum.
There
right?
goes that circle. Yeah.
Got the Disney theory. I mean, to me, Disney's had the metaverse for over 10 years. I mean, if you really want to talk about collecting data and information and personas and people's interactivity, Disney's been doing it for a long time. And once you go to that Disney experience and you get your wristband and everything, and you look at the map and you see people from all over the world, and it's tracking that information, it's tracking what you're doing, it's tracking what you're buying, it's tracking where you are at the park. They've had it. They've had it for a long time. And I think we can learn a lot from the amount of information and the way that they gather the information from a statistical standpoint. But I think there is not going to be one universal metaverse. It's not conceivable. There's no way that we can take just petabytes of information and be able to share that and utilize it on a day-to-day basis to consume anything. Phones listening right now. We live in the metaverse, right? How many times have you guys talked about something and then an ad popped up on your Facebook page, right? That was literally just something you were in the room discussing. That's the metaverse. It already exists. It's just we're integrating, and to me, we're dealing with it in a different way than how we see the digital life that we live, right? So
makes sense.
Yeah, we
So,
call
Matt,
it
you got to bring Disney on stage. At some
Disney.
point in time.
Okay, next year.
Next year.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, is that all that connectivity, right? If you ever tried to connect anything to SAP, right? Number one challenge. But I think we call some of that enterprise systems or enterprise integration today on the software side. I mean, it's precursory, but I think it's still working to connect all of those different systems together. Because I mean, I would assume at your guys' scale, otherwise the digital twin doesn't have much value. It's just a pretty model, right?
100%. Yeah, no, agree. I think it's a big struggle with the ERPs of the world and how they adapt to this space and how they integrate. We're going through a massive transformation right now with at our core, our ERP system, right? And we're in those conversations with those folks. How do we bring the knowledge of what a digital twin is, what this future of an industrial metaverse is, to them to help us all grow together? I think we need more of the folks that are the enterprise resource management folks in the conversation at all points in time. And I think that's missing, to be honest.
I think it'll be interesting, like when we talk about the metaverse piece, I think, and obviously we've seen the public side of it, right? That's not industry heavy on like use case for organizations, but we see a lot of the social side and we see the blow up there and like, a lot of hype. And when we say the metaverse or individual metaverses, or I think it'd be interesting. I think that there's the potential of a large global metaverse on the social side that people like a Meta, Google, those type of people, where you get something like a Google Earth that has more data, that has more models, that there's ways to, and I think we almost need something of that scale if we get to the point of, hey, I want to walk through a city with AR goggles and see digital advertisements and wayfinding and things like that. And then there's the enterprise side of like, how can an individual business take that same idea and instead of it being public, bring it down to a private use case of their data and their use, walking in your facilities or doing your manufacturing process and or going through an airport. I think we can then scale it down to those specific uses. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. But again, I don't even think I feel like our industry and the technologies that we have and that this whole event is focused on plays a critical role in making any of that possible, where a lot of the, the public side, they don't have some of the expertise that this audience has and that you guys have. Right. So I think that we can help define and push whichever direction we want, because somebody has to make it if it's going to get there. What would you say are some of the challenges? So digital twins, I would say, is something we are focused on, right? Like metaverse sounds like a more hype and like we're going somewhere with it, but digital twin, you guys have digital twin initiatives. You are working toward things. What are some of the current goals right now and some of the challenges that we're working through with those?
I think one of the biggest things is mindset. The culture of the companies that we're working with, there's a massive shift that has to happen there. And getting that buy-in has to start at the top. And it has to work its way down or else it goes nowhere. And there's many examples of failed initiatives.
I think a challenge is data architecture. I don't think there's enough discussion around the architecture of how we're moving data from one place to another in a digital stream. And, that's a challenge we face every day, trying to get vendors to understand you can't have a proprietary lockdown system. We need open information to be able to exchange that data from one platform to another through the life cycle of what we do. And, we deal with it every day, but we have to be innovative. And and that's my job, is to make sure that I can move that data in a meaningful way for my clients. And, it's important, but I think the software vendors have a lot to do with this, and they have a lot that they're accountable for or should be accountable for that they're not answering, that the industry needs to really move towards what a true digital twin is. This concept of open BIM, I don't like that. I mean, BIM is dead. It's an old term. We're talking about information management. We're talking about information modeling. It's gone beyond just the building component, right? And it's the built environment. And I just think, those are going to be huge challenges as we move forward if people don't start talking about the data architectures behind what we're doing.
Yeah, I think on the data architecture and that information management, that's definitely a key and a barrier that I see us focusing on. But once we get that data contextualized and visualized, really what I see exciting but a big challenge right now is how do we serve that up to our persona, our workforce? Our workforce is changing. It's operate from anywhere at any time. My son is not going to put on coveralls and turn a valve like I did, type of thing. They're going to want an immersive experience. I mean, you see some of the technology, it's being commoditized, it's refreshing every 3 to 6 months. To me, I still see some legacy enterprises struggling with that changing workforce and enabling them on a consumption level. I see that as a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what's unoperationalized technology? It's just a cool project.
Yeah.
Right. Unless you can take a digital twin and get workforce adoption and they understand how to use it and it's comprehensive and it just helps make life easier for them, it really misses the mark. So operationalizing the technology is huge, 100%. Which requires the data, right?
Yeah. Well, I love both of those points, or all three of those points, to be honest. This industry has the opportunity to create reality, right? Like, let's actually create the reality that we're going to be, living in and using for information, and the open interoperability. I'll second that. Huge. It's a thing that we're seeing right now. Standards, some type of training, some type of verification to make sure that the information we capture we can reuse it. Just, for a scale our size, we're not going to use one platform. We're not going to use one tool. We're not going to use one piece of data. We're going to use it many different times for many different use cases. And that's kind of it's one of our hardest points right now of, I've got this information, I need to be able to use it in multiple scenarios. Well, if I'm with one particular platform, I'm stuck. And there's amazing companies out there, a shout out to y'all selves as well, that are on that journey moving forward. But I think overall we need to realize that it's not a proprietary play for information. It's a data play that is now just as important as an ERP system's data is on interoperability. So 100% agree with that. I'll second on top of yours for sure.
Yeah, I want to build on what Michael said too. I think there's a misconception that to have a digital twin, you have to have some type of BIM model, and that's not exactly the case. We can tie digital twin platforms directly into point cloud data if you want that visualization.
Yeah, it's actually one of our big moves right now is
That's
reality
exactly what
first.
we do. Yeah.
Right. And it just probably the same thing with you. You've got locations, facilities that are 80, 90, 100 years old, or maybe somewhere in between there.
Exactly.
You don't have it. And to go be able to build it, I have to scan anyways. So if I'm scanning, why am I not leveraging that information as the reality to a digital twin?
Well, not people miss that. They miss that concept. I mean, I do it all the time. Instead of recreating a Revit model from the point clouds, I use the point clouds.
Yeah.
And I put the point clouds in the drawings. There's no reason to replicate what's already been done. We captured it. It's accurate.
Yeah.
We designed the new. And, so I use point clouds a lot as my backgrounds, right? And we only represent the new in that regard. I remember a couple of years ago, we had point clouds and we were giving people VR headsets to walk through a point cloud, and it was blowing their mind, to be able to integrate with something that was that real, right? And actually interface with it. So, for you guys, it's definitely one of those things where you're managing massive amounts of assets globally. How do you store all that?
Yeah.
And that governance, how do you store it? And then how do you access it? Right?
We had walked out into the shop floor. We had an engineering manager said, I've had my team work. I have a couple co-ops and they're working on redesigning this utilities area over here. And I mean, it was probably a 50 by 50 area. And I was like, well, you just want us to model it real fast? And what? You know what I mean? And so we look at the models, they were somewhat accurate, but over the course of weeks, they were only able to create so much, and you can't get the fidelity. I mean, you can't go in there and create every nut and bolt and every edge. And it takes too long. It's not an efficient use of time. And, you take a scanner out there and less than an hour later, you've got a model, you mesh it, and then it looks exactly like what it is, export it, drop it into CAD, and I mean, you're 98% of the way done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the two big points that y'all hit on there that are problem sets for the industry on that side. So I've captured reality. Well, how do I store that reality? How do I store that 3D information or that context in an open, interoperable way? We've been on a journey, and please prove us wrong here, that there isn't a really good platform for just capturing, storing, and then being able to deliver it to many different platforms. So there's that side of it. And then now what do I want to do? I want to create more context on that reality. I want to be able to tag things inside there. There isn't an interoperable data model for geospatial tagging that goes from macro to micro level. So that's another thing that we're pushing real hard on as well to try to get into the industry. And right now, what I'll say is we're building those things, but we don't want to. We want to be able to have that as an industry standard and an industry tool to use.
And on the other point of some of that struggle, and I know you mentioned it briefly, is like when it comes to the volume, again, a large organization decides this is what we want to do. How do you implement that? Who's going to go capture it? Around the world, tons of facilities. How do you actually implement this in a way that's reasonable timeframes? Who's going to capture? How is the data? How do you know the data is going to be consistent? What's being used? Like, how do you trust the data? When was it captured?
Some
There's
type of training system or certification to be able to drive that, right?
It pushes to the need for some type of standardization and certifications, because you can't right now go say, okay, we've got, facilities in whatever 500 locations, and you can't implement 500 different service providers, and you can't get one that can do all 500.
Yeah.
So if there's not some type of good guideline like that, then it makes it very difficult to scale this. And if that's the direction we think things are going globally for all organizations, you guys are one, and there's a lot, then this is something that has to be put in place in order to make really mass scale.
Agree. I'll share it a little bit in the presentation, but we have a very high expectation for quality, and we have 100+ facilities, and we really are sending one person to go and scan the bulk of all of them, just so we know we get the quality.
Yep.
And we've seen output that is close, but it's not as stringent. So I agree. We would absolutely leverage more scanning resources if we had clear, defined, I meet all of these expectations.
I think as the industry accelerates, even with reality capture, standards are going to be set. We have internal processes that, enable us to replicate, our data capture and deliver consistent results, but that's not the same across the industry. And
and that's the problem.
Everybody knows that.
From the client side, they have no idea. So if they say we need 10 people have their own processes and their own knowledge and their own experience level.
And that comes down to the responsibility too of the company. If you're reaching out to somebody to do this, pretty important task, it should be your responsibility to require, ask them for their process. Ask them questions. Don't be afraid to.
Yeah, it's just hard to do that if you need 100 companies or something. And that's where I think if we get to standards and certification, then it's something that you can just know if that's there, there's a process for it. You don't have to go that deep with each.
But a lot of companies don't need 500 scans done or 500 locations scanned at once. You can build off small wins.
Yeah, we're super fortunate, right? We've got folks inside the company that know what they're doing and talking about, and we're still struggling with it though, right? Still struggle with consistency. I feel bad for the company that doesn't have anybody that has any expertise inside the company at all with the digital twin, right?
And there's a lot.
They're just
because it's also new. It's until somebody grabs it and starts championing it and diving in, there are many organizations that have no one inside of it that's really in reality capture yet, or digital twin, or has any of the technical piece of that, and they're starting from scratch today and next month and next year. And
it's also, there's a capital investment that has to happen, and it's not exactly cheap either. So, a lot of small businesses may not have the same options.
I'm going to throw this question from the audience just because it hits that is, have digital twins shown enough value? I think we all know they're valuable, but it requires investment, which demands an ROI or compelling value statement. So are they showing enough value?
If you take call it, $120,000 investment into an RTC after licensing and blah, blah, blah that goes into it, and you need to find a strategic partner on the digital twin side, processing, so on and so forth, all the travel. It's a long play. It's not a short, where traditionally you would say, hey, we're going to do X. It's going to take 18 months. It's going to provide this much value back. This is how much capital we need. It's not that cut and dry, because it is a organizational change. And I'm not, tend to not use buzzwords, but it's transformative. It touches on all kinds of different aspects. So is it providing enough value? It has provided value that justifies continuing to develop the capability, but has it completely paid for itself hand over fist? I can't quantify it yet.
No, but I'm not going to throw the quantification, but how can it not be worth it? Come on. You have a changing workforce that is looking for these digital tools.
Yeah.
So if you want just to have legacy elderly people like myself, coming out of the market and you can't replenish, you've got to be digitally savvy as an organization.
I agree.
And by the way, a good digital twin will allow your workforce to confirm existing conditions without going to site.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to give you the ROI, but productivity. Every time you don't have to put somebody on a plane, you don't have to write a work permit for them to go behind and go into the process, which is the most dangerous place that we can put our employees. How is it not worth it?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. So the answer for us is yes. Right, we're in the move to scale, right, and that's why we're asking these hard questions. But it all is driven based off of, you say it pretty well, personas. What are those particular use cases? So everything for us has been driven off of what are the highest ROIs, and a lot of those real high ROI spaces are in ops and maintenance. How do I remove either move stuff to folks that are overseas, or and push those operators to other tasks, or ultimately remove some of those tasks from even happening in the first place.
You guys can't tell I'm Canadian, but I'm pretty excited sitting up here listening to this panel talk about the future. And it feels like as-builts are dead, right? That status quo of sending people out to model your facility before you do a shutdown, turnaround, or a modification, that is the past. It's reality first.
Yep.
Deal with your existing conditions. Yes, we'll get the MOC in place so that we keep our facilities ever known, type of thing. But it's all about reality, existing conditions. It's exciting.
Well, when you think of ROI, I mean, we look at it as, a large design, engineering, procurement, construction firm. Are we spending $1,000 to save 100? Right? I mean, that's the real question. That's where the rubber meets the road. Are we investing more than we're getting back in return? So we try to flip that paradigm and say, you're spending 100 to save thousands. And it's literally getting people to accept the paradigm of what that means whenever you're talking about a true ROI, because everybody has a different value system. Everybody has a different need, a different purpose. So, to us, we have to capture and define that purpose before we set out to do what it is that we're trying to do, right? And I think with the digital twin, what are you using it for? I'll be talking about this tomorrow, but for us, it boils down to asset management, like truly understanding what your resources are, the depreciation curves, being able to simulate the life of something ahead of time instead of waiting for it to decay, simulate the decay and be predictive and analytical about it. That's spending $100 to save 1,000.
Yeah.
To build off of that, I think there's also another misconception. When you say, what's the ROI of a digital twin, you don't necessarily have to start there. What's the ROI of reality capture? We can give you ROI on day one if you can prevent a work accident. How much is a time loss accident going to cost you? It's hard to quantify those things when they haven't happened yet, but the digital twin is more of a long play. A lot of companies already have real-time analytics and they have historian data, but they don't have the visualized aspect of it. They don't have that component. So when you start tying those two together and you have those historians, then you get into the predictive analytics side. And just for instance, say energy consumption, if you're spending $400,000 a month on electricity and we can save you 1%, that's millions of dollars year over year.
Yeah, there's strategic value versus what I can quantify on paper in an 18-month return.
Yeah.
Right. You got to have some vision to it.
For sure.
Digital twins require quality data that requires perpetual updating. It's expensive and requires altered workflows and behavior. Is the budget available for that? So when you're looking at digital twins, are you looking at a process of going back and updating it, and or how frequently, or do you see that as being a problem?
I think it depends on your platform, right? If you're reality first, we just go in and grab an iPhone and if we're missing a part or a component, you can LiDAR scan it with the phone, export it, dump it in. You can also most of the time when manufacturing engineers or engineering departments or a vendor gets bringing you a robot in manufacturing, we have models. That's what they deliver to us. Import. So you can naturally keep the twin up to date. I mean, it does require you to work with it, but if it's a part of your toolbox, then you should be working with it anyway. So, you could keep it up to date that way. And I think you just have a natural cadence for scanning. If you're tied into the operations as any good technologist should be, we're not seeing an entire facility change every 12 months. Right. You might see changeover or a reconfiguration of a product line, but that's easy enough to maintain. So, I don't necessarily know that the investment is huge to rescan. It is if you bring someone into RTC an entire 400K square foot facility.
Yeah, no, for us, I think it still is a challenge. Yeah. Absolutely, 100%. We're keeping reality up to date. That's a no-brainer. But I mean, there's the standards, control. I mean, control is a big one for us, making sure that we actually have control across the globe. So whenever I come to put that scan in that spot that it was before, that it actually sits in the spot that it should be. It's not in Africa somewhere, right? Or across the world. Those things are definitely challenges. I think those parts are challenges, being able to actually maintain control and understand that across your fleet of assets. But 100%, it has to. Reality first dies if you don't keep it up to date.
Because then it's just an artifact.
It's just an artifact. It's the same thing that just happened through, our CAD, our engineering models.
Yeah.
Well, the whole point of having a historian too is if you have a quality issue, or if you want to go back in time and look at what was happening at your facility, you can see every process at any point in time. If you're doing recapture, you can see the environment, and maybe there was environmental, aspect to whatever was impacting your processes at that time. So being able to go back and see that, I think, is invaluable, because once the time's passed, you can't get it back.
Sure. And how powerful is a reality first digital twin in helping you do a quality assurance check on your existing asset and engineering information management system? We've had lots of clients say, my data is not ready, my asset data is not ready, we've got to do a bunch of massaging and architectural work type of thing. But at the end of the day, when they see their asset in reality, they quickly understand and do a reconciliation that they've got pieces of equipment that they don't have in their SAP or their Maximo CMMS, or they don't have in their as-built type of thing. And that's all about risk identification, right? So you could do that quality check both ways to assist each other.
I want to jump in another question. So whether data or model, what is holding back from further visualization, like being able to walk through facilities with headsets and actually see data?
Because it's not a top-down problem, it's a bottom-up problem. It's who wants to do that? And you have to show that it's actually materially impacting their day-to-day work for them to put on a headset. I know, because I ask people to put on headsets every day. It's got to be improving the lives of the people doing the work at the end of the day, or they're not going to use it.
Same. Yeah.
Good point.
We were just talking about this, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think simplicity is also another big thing. I mean, like, our journey started a long time ago with immersive tech, and we did some really cool stuff. But sustaining that was a pain. Simplicity, headsets, get time to visualization is just you pick any headset that's out there right now, and I'll say that's a problem, especially if I'm looking at huge models or if I'm looking at huge reality capture. A guy that's actually at his desk doing an engineering job is not going to want to click 15 buttons just to be able to put on a headset.
Yeah, the use case there has to be, I'm working on a thing, I'm at a point where I need help. Boom. I grab a thing out, put it on my head, hit a button. Tom, what's going on?
We're working on it, guys.
Yeah. So even on that note, then share a little bit of where you guys think you could see it going from both the AR and VR side. We're working through this data. We've got these models. Like, where do you see, or would you want to see those tools be used further?
Yeah, field and at home base, right? Think about one of our remote engineers having the ability to be able to put on a headset, see the scan of the actual facility, see where the person that's in the field is in real time, and be able to do that instantly. Like that I mean, the gap right now is even the simplicity of putting on the headset to be able to even see a model. But me being able to see real time with the person that's in the field, that right now the only good thing is a AR with an iPad, but glasses, constant glasses are always on. I think that's that Minority Report kind of style thing that we're all looking for.
I'm happy you said it, because I was like, well, should we talk about the unicorn? In manufacturing, what if, right? So what if safety glasses were enabled with augmented reality and they were geospatially aware, and your digital twin sits on top of this data-rich ecosystem where the operator walks into a space and they are given all of the information that they need to be able to make contextual understanding decisions that are understanding of what's happening upstream and downstream.
Yep.
Right. So no longer you're like, well, I can make this, I can affect this, right? I'm gonna do option A here because I have a problem. What if you could say, if I change the conveyor speed by 4 amps, what's the total impact over the next 8 hours? Simulate.
Yep. Jarvis it.
Okay. I need to pick option B, but I just want to see that. It needs to be integrated into what I do. Metaverse. Right.
And if you're seeing it, it's going to be constantly updating that digital twin.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yep.
It's that constant streaming ecosystem of data, but it has to be practical.
I think feedback. I mean, it's not just a matter of looking and putting the glasses on. I envision a world where the glasses are talking back.
Yeah.
So we can capture, like, where are you? What are you doing? You're standing at a piece of equipment and you're operating it, and I'm 2,000 miles away. I can see what you're doing, in real time. And explain to you and walk you through those steps and those processes. And that's how you get that real-time update, right, of what's happening, because you're changing something in that process with those steps, and you can record it. And it takes away risk. It enhances safety, but it's communicative, because now you're building on that true as-built condition, and you're recording it. So I think it's a two-way street.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's what the predictive analytics side will, as that continues to grow, you might put your input in, it'll predict, or there's prescriptive analytics too. It'll prescribe the right procedures to take to get the outcome you want.
And I think it still goes back to that simplicity stuff. The bubble burst is that I don't think that there's an open interoperable way to be able to get our information into a headset quick enough to be able to actually do that at scale right now. And part of it has to do with data standards. Part of it has to do with how to train folks to be able to collect. And then the other part of it is, what is the consumption method that allows me to simplistically put on a goggle or a headset for that remote engineer. There's being in the space for a while, there's gaps there.
Yep.
Right. Streaming. Okay, great. All right, wonderful. If I need to see the scan, how am I going to stream that to a headset that's plausible for the user to be able to actually put on instantly? There's some really interesting things that are out there, but I think that's like it comes back to data.
It's that Ray-Ban form factor.
Yeah.
It's give me that in a pair of
it'd be
safety glasses and put a modem inside of it. Pretty please.
Well, for time's sake, we're going to start wrapping up here shortly. We had a lot of questions, which I think it'll be cool to just keep these conversations going. But I'd like to kind of end with some thoughts on, everything we've talked about. There's been a lot of ideas, a lot of future. Is there any of it that you think is unachievable?
Yeah,
No.
Storage.
Storage?
Storage is going to be a problem. I mean, you're going to have data centers. We're talking about, metaverses, right? You're going to have data centers that don't multitask how they're storing information. There's going to be data centers that are dedicated, 500, 750, megawatt facilities that are going to need to be built just to capture all the stuff that we're up here talking about, to be able to store it, to make it accessible. Then how do you break that apart? And then you go into SOC compliance, and what do people need to see? And what do you redact? And how do you take that information out? Because the scanner or the reality capture, as far as what we're calling, is getting everything. Do we need all of that information? Where's the value behind it? But I think storage is going to be the big issue whenever we move and we start thinking about, taking all these digital twins, putting them into a universe that's virtual. We don't have that storage capacity right now. And who's going to invest in doing that?
Yeah, no, don't disagree with that. I think I'm on that optimist side of saying that I absolutely think it can happen. I think it's happening. I think it's being able to do it at scale, simplistically, like that. So, I mean, Jarvis style systems exist right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done those things. So it's possible. It's just not extremely plausible right now with the amount of information and sites. Like you're saying, storage is absolutely there. But I think the optimistic side of it is absolutely it's possible. We just need to come together as a community to figure it out.
Yeah.
I agree with Kyle.
Yeah. That's what's cool about all these conversations is like you guys are coming with what are your challenges with facilities, and we have AR and we have software and we have providers. So getting to collect all that feedback together to even give feedback to the people making the technology about the storage, about the wants with the AR, all of those pieces. If we can keep having these conversations, then, year by year, we're going to keep making progress forward and sharing those insights and being able to reach the goals, that we really want to. I think it's all achievable. We've seen a lot of amazing things happen, right, over the last 50 years that people would have said was impossible. Like maybe even what's in our pocket, right? An iPhone that you can access the web, that you can scan stuff. Like technology is moving quick, and I think it's all achievable, which just shows also there's a lot of opportunity, and it's not fake opportunity. It like you said, it is here. Like people are building these things. They need scans, they need survey, they need models, they need all of these things are happening, and there's major opportunity with it. There's also opportunity for people. There's brilliant people out there that could be the next person to help figure out some of the issues. So also being creative and hearing these problems and like help figure out some of the solutions and come share them with everybody.